So good morning and welcome. As we open our final board meeting of the calendar year, I want to thank everyone for their effort and hard work. Chancellor Perman in his report will highlight many of the year's accolades and university accomplishments. As always, I look forward to hearing them. This morning, I want to take a moment to tout those within our universities who work toward ensuring the safety and well-being of the students and employees. Last week, the USM, in partnership with MHEC, hosted 115 university presidents, vice presidents of student affairs, police chiefs, and other leaders from across all the segments of Maryland higher education, a convening that might be the first of its kind. We received insights from a counterterrorism consultant, formerly with the FBI, and the chief safety officer and police chief from Michigan State University. A panel of presidents shared lessons learned from their campus incidents, and a panel of student affairs vice presidents spoke about the connection between campus incidents and mental health. The event was the start of a larger conversation of how higher education across the state can come together to keep students safe. I'm going to turn our agenda today. We want to leave as much time as we can for our special guests. Today, Governor Wes Moore will bring remarks in just a few moments. In the meantime, we will first hear from our host, University of Maryland President Bruce Jarrell. Dr. Jarrell, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to welcome all of you to the University of Maryland, Baltimore. And I guess I can say now it's my pleasure to welcome the governor back to the University of Maryland, Baltimore. My comments will be brief, and then I will show a video and then turn the floor over to Governor Moore. Let me begin by saying welcome to this campus. This is a professional and graduate school university. We have about 15% undergraduates, and the remainder of our 7,000 students are graduate students. We have a large research budget and do a lot of research from extramural sources, particularly the federal government. This year's number is $680 million. That's a fairly sizable amount of money. We are also an anchor institution. We are embedded in our West Baltimore community. We serve those in that community. We also act as mentors for the young people of that community so that they will have a future of hope as well. Throughout all of these missions, we have one other major partner. You've seen it. It's across the street. It's called the Medical System and the Medical Center. They are our partners through thick and thin, and our faculty with their institution care for the sickest in this state, sometimes in the world. So what I would like to do for the remainder of my talk is to show you a brief video about what UMB is. So with that, may we start the video?
The University of Maryland, Baltimore is improving the future today, preparing the next generation of professionals in healthcare, law, and social services, bolstering Maryland's high technology and health sciences economy, and solving the problems that challenge the human condition.
There's an estimate that about 70 to 80% of people who bleed to death, either in a military setting or in a pre-hospital setting, had survivable injuries.
Funded by a $46 million grant from DARPA, The Defense Research Projects Agency, Dr. Alan Doctor is leading a consortium of scientists from around the country to develop an artificial blood product to keep people alive until they can be treated.
Medics can carry this in an ambulance to their scenes and carry it around all day. And so they would be able to give a transfusion even inside a car before somebody was even extracted.
There's medical history tonight at the University of Maryland.
In September, a 58-year-old Navy veteran from Frederick with terminal heart disease became just the second patient in the world to receive a heart transplant from a genetically modified pig.
I will fight tooth and nail for every breath I can take. But realistically, this is still an early stage learning process. And I have to be ready to accept whatever outcome we end up at.
The School of Medicine team led by doctors Bartley Griffith and Mohammed Mohideen are advancing science that could save the lives of 6,000 Americans who die each year waiting for an organ, and thousands more who are deemed too sick to even qualify for the waiting list.
Dr. Griffith, you and I were around when heart transplant first started, weren't we?
I was a junior in college when the first human received a heart transplant in 1967. And it was spectacular. You know, I mean, the world was in awe. People were dying prematurely from heart disease. There was no real good medical therapy. So the lucky ones got heart transplants, and they were quite lucky to live a year with their heart transplant. But people gravitate to hope, so they took what was available, which was the human heart transplant.
So why not just make human heart transplant the gold standard?
The problem is the availability. You know, there are very few hearts available. There's a huge disparity between what is needed and what's available. We have, a large number of people on waiting lists just waiting till they die.
Think of what a wonderful gift it would be to basically eliminate premature cardiac death from heart failure. And there's a lot of patients that do die from heart failure, and they can make an appointment in the future with their doctor just as if they're getting an artificial hip.
Schedule it.
We'll schedule your pig that's tailor-made for you will be available in 3 months. And
Remarkable story.
The spirit of collaboration guides another groundbreaking team of scientists at UMB, the Center for Vaccine Development and Global Health.
It's one of the few academic medical research institutes that really studies all phases of vaccinology, from antigen discovery, which is going on in this lab and labs across the hall, all the way through testing in animals, testing in trials, delivering the vaccine, and then going out into the field and seeing how it works.
CVD has created and tested vaccines against cholera, typhoid fever, shigellosis, and many more diseases. Through years of work before and during the COVID-19 pandemic, CVD offered unparalleled leadership in vaccine development, particularly in the area of mRNA vaccines. Earlier this year, CVD faculty launched a multi-center study to investigate the use of mRNA technologies to create a vaccine against malaria, a disease that afflicts 250 million people every year in sub-Saharan Africa and kills more than 600,000. CVD's impact reaches beyond Maryland and the United States, with research and educational efforts ongoing in 17 countries on 5 continents. One prominent example, CVD Mali.
I have to say the collaboration connection between CVD Mali and University of Maryland CVD Global Health has been a key role player in global health today. So now we are really one of the state of the art, if not only in West Africa, but in Africa, one of the best vaccine trial centers and disease surveillance centers playing key roles in global health.
The individuals, the leaders, the practitioners, the clinicians in these countries are doing amazing things with far less resources than we have here in the United States. They're innovative, they're creative, they're passionate, and we learn from that. And we bring those creative ideas back to the United States to benefit our communities.
I had the opportunity in my global health work as Deputy Director and Director of Global Health to see this program in Brazil that focused on social inclusion. And it said social inclusion is integral to health. I would go to all these countries and I would see these different programs and I would be curious about whether those programs could be implemented in West Baltimore, where I was from. One father told me, he said, imagine living on a block where there's 20 row houses like what we see behind us, and 12 of them are abandoned, and 6 of them have older adults that are afraid to come out, right? And he said, I live in this house with my family, and I'm afraid to go out of the house because of the violence within the community. We have to reach out to them as a university. And one of the things about this project that's been really exciting around social isolation is we've been able to not only work with community members, but hire them as part of the research team.
Yes.
And so now they are the ones really helping to teach us.
When you talk about students and you talk about faculty, they're the model of inquisitiveness. They're coming here to learn. You can't learn from a community that's not vibrant. The learning doesn't just happen in the classroom. It happens on campus. It happens in the community. And if you're not part of a vibrant community, your learning is not as rich as it could be.
This will not be successful if it's an island. It cannot be an island. It has to involve the community. It has to have new development, and I'm pleased to say that UMB is very committed to that development as well.
UMB has long been a committed partner to the success of Lexington Market, providing customers, programs, and in recent years, security assistance for the 240-year-old Baltimore landmark.
And make this market a vibrant place, a place where people can mix together and enjoy healthy food.
Following the recent $40 million renovation, the market once again flourishes, filled with many of UMB's 15,000 faculty, staff, and students.
If it tastes like grandma's, it's a good thing.
Immediately adjacent, 2 historic and long vacant properties owned by the university have also been redeveloped into beautiful and productive residential and retail space. Even more important than the community's landscape, UMB is invested in the vibrancy of its people. Faculty and student-run clinics provide legal services, job preparation, healthy activities for seniors, and plenty of enriching activities for kids, such as the Police Athletic and Activities League and theater camp at the historic Hippodrome Theater.
Oh, Mamma Mia, here I go again. Baltimore is poised to become one of the world's top biotech and artificial intelligence hubs. And so many communities just like ours are now set to become true economic powerhouses.
UMB will play a major role in the development of one of 31 federal technology hubs. Baltimore's hub is eligible to receive $500 million of CHIPS and Science Act funding and will focus on predictive healthcare, the combination of artificial intelligence and healthcare data to improve healthcare outcomes and clinical decision-making, and to produce new therapies and drugs. The university has also just announced a new collaboration with another USM institution, UMBC. Under a Maryland Research, Evaluation, and Commercialization Hubs, or REACH grant, both institutions will work to advance the biomedical entrepreneurship and innovation economy in West Baltimore and in Greater Baltimore.
You know, one of the joys of this role is you get a chance to be around people who inspire you every single day.
Governor Moore's October visit to the biopark focused on biotechnology, innovation, and economic development.
How can we play a role in your strategy? How can we make that our strategy?
When it comes to our plan and our strategy is we need to identify where the assets are and be willing to invest in those, because that's the only way the jurisdictions win.
Introducing the Neural Eye.
Some 40 technology companies with more than 1,000 employees work and grow at the University of Maryland Biopark. Many are spinouts of technologies invented and developed here at UMB. The newest jewel in the crown of the UM Biopark is 4MLK. The 8-story, 250,000 square foot building topped off in November at the intersection of Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard and Baltimore Street, and will provide critical wet laboratory space in downtown Baltimore for researchers and companies. flexible lab and support space for startups, office space, and a conference center available to the community.
The UM is already the largest cluster of life science companies in the greater Baltimore region. The new building will allow us to bring in anywhere from 50 to over 100 new companies into that cluster, into partnership with the companies who are already here, which is a very important element of building this community of biotech and life sciences. This is like a sign and a flashing diamond that says, we are technology, we are vital life sciences, we are discovery, we are a community full of brilliant people.
University of Maryland, Baltimore, improving the future today through education, economic development, innovation, and discovery.
So that is UMB. Thank you for watching it. You're welcome to participate in it. Governor, nice to have you.
It's good to see you, Doctor.
Thank you, President Gerald. It's a pleasure to be back at UMB and to learn about the exciting work that's being done at the university. And thank you for hosting us. It's now my great honor and privilege to introduce our special guest, Maryland Governor Wes Moore. Wes Moore is a man of many accomplishments. He was a Rhodes Scholar, a captain in the United States Army, a White House Fellow, a successful investment banker, CEO of a nonprofit, a best-selling author, and today, the 63rd governor of Maryland, the state's first ever Black governor, and only the third Black governor elected in any state. As governor, he has been a great friend of higher education and of education at all levels. And as a graduate of Johns Hopkins University right here in Baltimore, he knows the importance of higher education firsthand. He has pursued innovative approaches to encourage volunteerism in public service. And the USM is proud to partner with Governor Moore and his administration in this effort. He is committed to creating a future of clean energy and sound environmental stewardship, another priority where the USM is working closely with the governor and his team. He is working hard to build a strong and more inclusive economy for all Marylanders. Please join me in welcoming Governor Wes Moore.
Well, good morning. Good morning. How y'all doing? Morning. Good, good. It's a beautiful day. I am grateful to be here. And first, Madam Chair, thank you so much. For you and also to Chancellor Perman. You all have just been such wonderful friends, partners, and guides throughout this journey. And when I said early, I was like, in my first year, I want to make sure I get to a board meeting. And you all are like, we're going to make that happen. Well, you all are promise keepers, and I appreciate it. And thank you for making the time here for me to be able to join each and every one of you. This is very exciting for me because here I'm getting a chance to see people who were, friends and mentors, people who have been thought partners, people who have raised their hands to serve. This work is not simple. This work is not easy. For everybody who chooses to do it, I cannot say thank you enough, because what we are facing right now and the things we are seeing right now and the opportunities we have in front of us, they are going to be approached and we are going to be able to win because the people in this room are able to will it so. Because progress does not happen by accident. Progress does not happen just because. Progress does not happen because time goes on. It happens because you have people who are willing to put in the work. You have people who are willing to follow a vision. And you have people who understand that the only way that we're going to be successful is if we get more people involved and if we get more people engaged. have more people who actually can have an educational platform that shows them that the world is bigger than what's directly in front of them. Have people who know that the pathway for them to have long-term economic success is for them to be lifelong learners. And knowing that if we can do that, that there's nothing about the challenges of Maryland that won't be able to be overcome. And so I thank each and every one of you for being able to raise your hand to serve in what I think is just an incredibly, incredibly valiant mission. And two folks who I want to give a special shout out to, Farah from UMBC and Josiah from Salisbury. One of the great things I love about this organization is the fact that y'all actually have student regents, because you actually keep the main thing the main thing. It's amazing how many conversations take place in the state about people without people. I mean, it goes on all the time, where people are talking about what we're going to do for X community, what we're going to do for Y community. And then you ask them, how many people of that community are actually part of your conversations? Crickets. Thank you all for leading. And thank you for stepping up. And thank you for showing what's required to actually have progress. One of the beautiful things about this room right here is that when you look around, you see Maryland represented. Every single part of our state, from the Eastern Shore, Western Maryland, Harford and Cecil County, all the way down to St. Mary's and Calvert and Charles, Baltimore City, Baltimore County, Montgomery County, Prince George's County. I mean, you've got it all. Every single aspect of our state, every single aspect of our state's hope is represented in this room. And so to both Farah and Josiah, I just want to say thank you for stepping up. I know doing this while also doing your coursework is not simple. But they always say, if you want something done, give it to the busiest person that you know. And just want to remind you that every room you're in, you are there because you belong there. And you're there because that room would be incomplete if you weren't there. I want to take a few moments, and I'm looking forward to the conversation as well. But I want to take a few moments to talk about something that I know is near and dear to every one of our hearts, and that's service. And why we wanted to start this administration with a core focus on service, and why that matters. You know, I know that I saw it and I felt it, where when I came back and I was, running for governor, I had people who I served with in Afghanistan who came and campaigned for me. They were coming and they were door knocking. They were coming, they were phone banking. And many of the people who I served with in Afghanistan who came and campaigned for me, they weren't Marylanders. Many of them were not Democrats. But they were simply coming to knock on doors on my behalf, and they were just telling people, let me tell you about the guy that I served. Because I just believe in this time of this political divisiveness, in this time of this political vitriol, in this time where many people seem to care more about where the idea come from than is it a good idea, that service is going to save us. Service is going to lift us to a higher hill, because it's going to give us a chance to get to know each other again. It's going to give us a chance to have something unified that we can believe in. And it's going to give us a chance to know that the things that we are working on and that we're working on together, understanding that every single voice, every single person, every single community needs to be heard and represented. And there becomes a real power with that responsibility and the need to be asking ourselves, how can we make higher education more accessible and more accountable to being able to be honest and true to what that mission is? On Monday, I'm going to be heading over to University of Baltimore. See you, President Schmote, Mayor Schmote, and my mentors. And one of the students I'm going to be talking about is one of your future graduates, Thomas Anderson. And he's graduating from the university's class. He's graduating from its Second Chance program, which is all about helping returning citizens getting a college degree. So when they come home, there's actually a prospect for them as they enter back into society. This is the kind of program, and the reason that I'm going to highlight Thomas. So I'm giving you a little bit of early read on my speech. One of the reasons I highlight Thomas is that's exactly the kind of program that we want to support and invest in and build up. Because we know that for someone like Thomas, one of the challenges we have when it comes to our reentry population is there's this difficulty where every sentence will start feeling like a life sentence. Where the difficulty and the challenge of being able to reenter back into society and become productive, and the amount of barriers and asterisks that we put next to people's names become prohibitive. But programs like the Second Chance program that Thomas is going to graduate from and going to proudly stand up on stage with you. These are the kind of things that can open up opportunities, not just for the individual, but for the families they belong to and for the communities that they represent. Now, we all know that each and every one of us have made some mistakes along the way. So all we're simply looking for is an opportunity for grace, a chance to make second chances actually mean something. That's why things like that will actually work. The ability to invest in programs that so many of you universities are already doing. But how are we opening up the aperture for people to enter into industries of, I've had the joy of spending time on so many of your, whether it's Salisbury or UMES or COP, and I mean like all over. Having a chance to see the innovations and watching students who have found something that makes their heart beat a little bit faster, and that the institutions that you are leading are presenting pathways for them to actually go out and achieve it. Where UMD right now, one of the best cyber programs in this country. And we're proud of the fact that now, since the FBI building is coming to Prince George's County, it's coming to the state of Maryland, which is, by the way, going to solidify Maryland as the cyber capital of this country. And one of the main selling points we made when we were going down to Washington, D.C. and making our pitch, the fact that we have one of the best cyber programs in America here in the state of Maryland. That when we think about the type of assets that we have right here already in this state, our job is to help to foster them. Our job is to help to build them. Our job is to help to invest in them. We are going to invest in these new programs. We are going to ensure that we're doing it in an inclusive, an equitable, and in a collaborative way that avoids infighting amongst our institutions of higher education and keeps everyone focused on the main thing, that our state wins. And importantly, we've got to prioritize partnership to make that happen. Because if we are going to build more public servants, it means we've got to be able to build them together. All of you have extended your hands in partnership to this new administration, and that I say thank you, how deeply appreciative I am. But also importantly, I want to say thank you for your support of the service year option that Maryland now. Because we talked about something for 2 years, the idea that Maryland can be the state that serves. That we want to create pathways for everyone to have an option, be able to be part of something bigger than this. And with your help, with your support, and with your guidance, and now with your partnerships, Maryland is now the first state in this country that offers a service year option for all of our high schools. Where they are now already working within your institutions all over the state. 2 months ago, we launched the program down at University of Maryland College Park. And already we've had Coppin, Bowie, Frostburg, UMBC are all now hosting service year options and service year events on their campuses too. And I want to say thank you for that. When we say partnership, we mean it. When we say partnership, we believe in it. When we say partnership, we have to invest in it. The steps that we are moving together by training our students for the opportunities of today, the opportunities of tomorrow, and knowing that it's not just for them to fill into the slots, it's for them to be able to create them and imagine them as well. That's how you all are continuing to push, and that's why our state continues to be better. And we know these responsibilities don't fall on your shoulders alone. For this administration, in our first months, we secured over $422 million for Maryland's HBCUs, because we believe that a core focus and a core push for our state's growth is the fact that we have 4 of the top HBCUs in America in one state, and that is an asset that we are going to celebrate. And in our first months, we secured over $122 million to provide student aid to more than 30,000 students. Because if a student chooses to go down the path of higher education, we need to make sure that affordability is never going to be one of their barriers. And in our first months, we announced more than $100 million in scholarships and education grants for higher education to help more than 43,000 students. I am here to say with a full throat and a deeply appreciative heart that you have and you will consistently have a partner in the State House who believes in you and believes in this mission. Better opportunity, greater access, seeing everybody, leaving no one behind. These are our North Stars. It's not just a governing philosophy, it's our governing lens. And I'm grateful that we have the best partners that any administration could ask for, helping to ensure that when we say this is going to be Maryland's decade, I don't say it because just blindly optimistic. I say it because I know our assets. And I'm willing to bet on our assets. But if we do it, but thank you all. Excited for the conversation now. And I truly, truly appreciate you guys having me. Bless you guys.
Well, Governor, as you would expect, we'll have questions for you. So we're going to start here with Regent Fish.
Good morning, Governor. You already touched on and talked about accessibility and affordability. Can you expand just a little bit more as you look out over the remainder of your first term and address how are we going to?
I'm glad you highlighted that because I'm coming back for a second.
If you can address for us, you know, affordability is clearly a concern for the citizens of Maryland.
Yeah.
So as you look out the remainder of the first term, can you address for us how's state funding and state support for it? You mentioned a little bit about some of the scholarships.
Yeah, I do, and thank you so much. So in addition to the scholarships and making sure that we are providing supports for the students as they're making their decisions, there are a few things that I think are going to become important when it comes to the affordability conversation. One, and I know this might not, might not be a popular thing to say in this room, but I think we need to be honest that attending one of these institutions should not have to be a prerequisite for economic success. And I think we need to be honest about that. That we have some of the best schools in America here in the state of Maryland, but not every student should have to attend one of them. That part of the investment and part of what we mean by affordability is for the students who choose not to attend one of our institutions, that there's got to be pathways for economic success for them as well. And so that means how are we having outreach and how are we making sure that from as early as middle school and early high school, that students are learning about the different and various options, whether they be trades and apprenticeship programs, that they can also go down. So we know that the students who are walking through your doors are students who we know that is the path that they have chosen, and that's the path that makes the most sense for them, and not just the path that was dictated. And so I think part of it is we have to have an honest conversation about making sure that that pipeline is a strong one and a prepared one. Second thing, when it comes to levels of preparation, some of the challenges we have when it comes to affordability and accessibility, it is this challenge of preparation, where the longer you have a student who is sitting on one of your campuses, the more expensive it's going to be for them. And so how are we helping with that transition? How are we doing more to support students as they're getting through their first and their second year successfully and not having their freshman year experience becoming a 2-year experience? Because it's going to cost the same. So making sure we're really creating that pipeline, I think becomes crucially important. The third piece is this. is doing a better job, both in terms of state resources and making sure that they know what state resources are available and making them accessible. But also it's about what are the additional resources that are available that oftentimes we have students who are just leaving them on the table. And so you look at everything from the lack of preparation that our students have when it comes to FAFSAs and filling out what they need for their federal aid. The fact that for many students, they don't realize that that is not a one-year thing. It's not just I do that when I go from high school to college. You have to repeatedly do that, especially if there are changes within your family's financial situation. And so you have students we have students across the country who are literally leaving billions of dollars on the table because they're not filling out paperwork correctly.
And it's not an easy.
It's an absurdly difficult form. I mean, you know, we worked on this issue before I went to Robin Hood. We worked exclusively on this issue. It was crazy watching people with like multiple letters after their last name who could not figure out the basic aspects of FAFSAs. And imagine if you're a student who has a complicated family history. Imagine if you're a student who says, well, you know, my mom lives with her boyfriend and her boyfriend works, but she does not, but he helps. Like, I mean, there's a whole maze that many of our students are trying to figure out. And we don't make it easy for them. And so I think that we've got to do a better job and really also lean in towards not just the idea of how are we increasing the resources, but how are we making more accessible the resources that are already available, but that are remarkably difficult for our students to be able to access because we continue to ask them to walk through mazes in order to get that capital. So I think those are kind of the three things that when I think about what it means to address affordability, yes, we have to consistently make sure we have state capital and state supports that are going, but not every student needs to attend one of the institutions, and we need to be honest about that. Being clear about how can we make it simpler and easier for them to be able to get the resources that are on board, both federal and state. Those are all the things that we really need to think about in a holistic way if we're going to have an honest conversation about college affordability.
President Dupree.
Thank you, Chair Gooden. Good morning, Governor.
Good morning.
I wanted to start by thanking you for your earlier visit this year when you were on campus and were able to interact with students from our Public Affairs and Civic Engagement Center. It really meant a lot to them. So thank you very much.
I loved going there.
I'm very glad you loved going.
Looking forward to getting back.
So my question is this: how can universities like Salisbury that are located in rural communities and have distinct opportunities to serve that community's needs, how can we better support your public service initiatives?
I think that one of the great things about the service year, and we specifically designed it this way, there were a couple core components that I think became prerequisites in how we thought about the work. One is that these had to be paid opportunities, because if we were just going to have a service year option that was one of these like unpaid things, immediately you are segregating who can participate and who can't, right? So by making it a paid opportunity and where it's universal, now you are opening up an aperture, and now you're essentially democratizing something that data continues to show has great measures of efficacy and long-term productivity. So that was one. The second piece was where we weren't going to tell the students what to do. Where, we called it the service year option, not just because the students don't have to do it. We're not mandating it. You can choose to do it or choose not to. But it's a service year option also because we're not telling you what to do. That there are going to be students who say, I want to focus on the environment. And I want to help build seawalls to address rising sea levels. Or I want to focus on tree canopy. Because we know that we have some jurisdictions, Baltimore City, for example, is the 7th hottest heat island in this country because of a lack of tree canopy. Which also, by the way, drives up asthma rates, why Baltimore City students have double the asthma rate of anywhere else in the state. So there's certain students who say, I want to work with veterans. And the fact that Maryland has one of the largest and most thriving, but also some of the most challenged communities for veterans and their families. There's some people who say, I want to work with returning citizens. There's some people who say, I want to work with young people. The option is yours. We're not telling you how to serve. We're just asking you to serve. And so I think one of the things that we're trying to do with all of our institutions of higher education is we want you all to be the ones to take the lead to tell us what are the needs in your communities. If you turn around and say, listen, in the shore, we actually have A, B, and C. But if we're talking about Towson, the issue is, D, E, and F. We will create platforms and programs and partnerships in those specific areas that meet the needs of those communities. That was something that became important. The other reason why why we think that's going to be necessary is there are going to be some students who come from Western Maryland who say, I want to do my service year over in Salisbury. And I think that's beautiful, because if they can spend that year not just finding the thing that makes their heart beat a little bit faster, but maybe finding another part of the state that as of yet has been undiscovered or unexplored, let's create that opportunity for them to do that too, and for them to really get to know each other. So I'm thankful not just for the partnership already, but I'm thrilled about the fact that we have our team is focused on creating a tailor-made experience for the individual jurisdictions that your universities exist in.
President Shares Ashby.
Good morning.
What a privilege to have you here today. And I also just want to say, before I ask my question, it is a special thing to be in the state of Maryland, where the state government partners so beautifully with the university system and public higher education. It is not something I take for granted, having come here from other states, where that's not necessarily the case. As such, though, I think we are capable of leading the country and showing what happens when we partner to solve some of the problems that are really most important in the state and beyond. And so I wanted to ask, following up on the previous question, how can we continue to engage with you on some of your emerging priorities? We certainly have heard about the year of service, but I'm curious about other priorities where we can engage.
Thank you. And by the way, I just want to say, and I'm proud of the fact that one of the first things that I did as governor was to attend your installation.
Oh,
It was a true joy to be there, to watch.
Privilege. Thank you.
To watch history in the making. I think about over this next legislative session, we're going to be busy, and if you go down for our last legislative session, we ended up introducing 10 bills, and we're proud of the fact that we went 10 for 10 on our legislative bills, but also importantly, went 10 for 10 bipartisan. So received Democrat and Republican support on all of the bills that we introduced and put forward. But instead of resting on our laurels, as I've told my team, that was a great appetizer. We're getting ready for the main course. We're excited about this session because I think it will further illustrate how we're thinking about the task at hand. And I think you all are going to play a key and important role in that, and we want to be able to engage closely with you. We know, for example, that we have got to be able to get our economy going and really put core targets on the things that we know are going to create real measurements of economic growth and economic sustainability and are going to make this state more competitive. So, for example, one of the issues that we're working on is I'm thinking about the role that emerging economies and things like data centers are going to play. They are going to play and need to play a very important role in how we think about growth, because this is something that's not just going to impact areas in Prince George's County. It's going to impact areas in Frederick County, and so you will see that I'm personally going to be introducing a bill that's going to be focusing on the emergence of the data center industry and how exactly we can be more supportive to allow those measurements of growth. You are going to see that we are going to be working on legislation where we've got to make it easier for people to enter into roles of public service, and that also includes our first responders, and explicitly what that means for people in law enforcement, because some of the shortages that we are having within law enforcement, not just at a state level, but at a local level, are real and they're drastic. And so I will personally be introducing a bill and working on a bill that's going to focus on apprenticeship programs and platforms for employment for people who are first responders, specifically people who are in law enforcement, and creating a more robust force. We are, the idea that we have communities that, when we talk about being left behind, as a leader, I am data driven and heart led. I wear my heart on my sleeve, and I acknowledge that, but also I don't move it all without data. You got to show me data in order for us to get behind something. The problem that we've had is some of these communities that have been so chronically neglected, it's not new. If you look at basic census tract data and you look at some key indicators, things like child poverty measurements, which you know, for all those who have known me and some who have known me for decades, if there is an issue that is, you know, if people ask what made you want to get into this world, my answer is actually very, very clear: child poverty. I do not understand why our society has it nor condones it. And we do it repeatedly. And we do it with the policies we keep pushing, where we are condemning children before they even have a choice for what kind of life they should have. And if you look at the data around the neighborhoods and the communities that continue to be challenged on this issue, they are the same communities that have been challenged in this issue for decades. And we have never put together a really strategic approach about how to do that. So we are going to be working on I will be introducing legislation where we're going to focus on how are we actually using census tract data and come up with a real way of being able to address this issue of child poverty by being able to say the neighborhoods that have been chronically neglected and chronically left back, and for these communities that oftentimes sit in concentrated poverty, what would it look like if we actually flooded them with resources? What could actually happen to not just for an individual community, but for a state? So we have a couple really big initiatives, probably about anywhere from 12 to 15 bills that we'll personally be introducing, in addition to ones that we'll be supporting. You know, that'll be some of our departmental bills that will happen on board and focus on everything from how are we getting our economy going to how are we doing a better job to supporting our watermen and our farmers and our agriculture community. So we're going to be busy. But one thing we would love to do is to be able to make sure we're spending time with each and every one of you to talk about what are some of the legislative priorities we have and how can we partner together to make sure that we can get them through the legislature. And then after that, then get to work.
Regent Parker.
Morning, Governor Moore.
Good morning.
It's an honor to finally get to meet you in person. And I just want to personally thank you for believing in me. I see you as a mentor, and I feel as if you've inspired me to really become that leader that I look forward to being in the state of Maryland. So I just want to thank you for that. And I just would like to congratulate you on the selection of Maryland now being the next FBI headquarters. I'm not only am I previously from PG County, I originally grew up in Greenbelt, so this definitely hits home to me. And so my question for you is, how many jobs will the new facility bring to Maryland with this new initiative that just happened?
Man, you make me smile, man. And first, let me just say, and I know I speak for everybody, not just here, but for 6.2 million people. We are proud of you, and we are excited to watch you shine.
So much.
We're excited to watch you shine. The FBI was a big deal, and I remember when we came in, and I guess it's not private because it was reported by the Washington Post. That one of our earliest board meetings, I think our not board meetings, our cabinet meetings. Sorry, I'm still getting used to government lingo. One of our earliest cabinet meetings, where I think it was a February meeting or the March meeting, where we were talking about the FBI building, and we hit the table and said, "I want that building," and we are going full force to go get this building. And I knew the challenges, and I knew that Virginia thought they had an early advantage. But this was going to be huge for a few different reasons. One, to your question, that building is going to produce over 7,500 jobs. 7,500 jobs, over $4 billion of economic activity. This is GSA's largest project ever, right? The largest project ever that is going to be produced is going to be the FBI building that will be built in Greenbelt, Maryland. But it's also more than that. It's when you think about the future mission of the FBI, which, by the way, was one of the criteria that the FBI looked at. And one of the reasons why we were highlighting things like the work of University of Maryland College Park, and we've one of the best tech programs, one of the best cyber programs in the country right here in the state of Maryland. But the state of Maryland is also the home of U.S. Cyber Command. It's the home of Fort Meade, right? It's the home of Andrews, the home of the Naval Academy. It's the home of over 40 military installations. If you want a cyber home or a cyber hub, you do not have to look any further than our boundaries. And so what this is going to mean in terms of really putting a laser focus on industries and growth industries that we are going to have in our state. The fact that this is not only going to solidify Maryland as the cyber capital and the cyber hub of this country, but this is also going to help to solidify Maryland as the defense tech hub for this country. That this is going to allow us to make sure that we have a really focused economy and make the strategic investments in things that we know are going to be things that are going to have a real competitive advantage to the state of Maryland. Because for an economy to be competitive, it means you have to move with intentionality. Every economy that's ever won, it's because they've actually made decisions, right? Kentucky right now is the EV battery capital of this country. Not because there's something natural about Kentucky. They chose to invest in it and they won. Massachusetts right now is the home of biotech, right? Not because there's something unique about Massachusetts or their climate is great, but it's because they said we have these natural assets here. If we can make strategic investments, we can actually win, and they did. So this is a moment where our state is going to start making some choices and start saying, when you think about the assets that we have on board here, how can we really tailor investments inside of that to include things like an FBI building that's coming to the state of Maryland, to say that there's no reason that Maryland should not be the cyber capital of this country. There's no reason Maryland should not be the defense tech capital of this country. The economic growth that that building is going to generate, not just from the building, but from everything else it will spurn, is going to be massive. And that's why we fought so hard to try to make it happen, and we're proud it worked out. Big deal for your old home, Prince George's too. But it's only a big deal for the whole state. Big deal for the whole state.
Regent Wood, we're going to give you the last question.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Hi, Bill.
Hi, Governor. Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you so much for coming. We're truly honored that you're here. And thank you for your support of the prison education program.
It's huge.
Yeah. So as Regent Fish mentioned, it's been nearly a year since your inauguration. As you think back over that year, what are you the most proud of?
Oof. I'm you know what I'm most proud of? I'm proud that we kept our promises. Because that was the most important thing. I'm proud that when we told the state that we were going to create an administration that looks like the state of Maryland, where every person can look up at the administration and say, I see myself represented in that administration. And that having that focus on inclusion in no way meant compromising excellence. Because I look at folks like, Secretary Addix, right? And the work that's happening right now within agriculture. I look at Secretary Anderson and the work that's happening in commerce. And I don't know if I'm missing any other cabinet secretaries here.
No.
Just two? Okay, great. The rest are great too.
Yeah.
The rest are great too. But this is the baddest cabinet in the country. And I will say that to the face of any other governor, and I ask them to challenge me on it. This is the best administration in America. And so when we said that we could build an administration that is both inclusive and excellent, we got it done. When we said that we have got to get our economy moving. I mean, Maryland's economy has grown by 0.2% over the past 5 years. The average state has grown by 7.5%. We haven't been moving. And so when we said we've got to find ways of actually targeting our investments, we've got to go on the offensive when it comes to bringing businesses and economic development and being unapologetic about it. And I think about in our first, 11 months, what Maryland has jumped 20 slots in economic competitiveness in the past 11 months, right? Maryland now has the lowest unemployment rate in the entire country. And you think about and take a look at what's happening right here in Baltimore. Baltimore's economy has now grown year on year, their economy's grown 6.8%, which makes it the 7th fastest economy in the entire country, right? I mean, the economy is moving. despite the fact that, you know, that when we're looking at, there are real headwinds, because there still needs to be changes in our business model, which I can, if you all are interested, I can talk about that for another half hour. Because our business model needs to be adjusted and fixed in our state. But you can actually, when we said we've got to get our economy moving and we've got to make sure we're getting more people involved in our economic growth, we meant it. And we got it, and we started, and it's getting done. When we said we are going to make the most all-out assault on child poverty that our state has ever seen, and just in our first months, we were able to do things like raising a minimum wage, because gone should be the days when you have people who are working jobs, and in some cases, multiple jobs, and still living at or below a poverty line. That we're able to do things, make permanent the child tax credit, have an enhanced earned income tax credit. Just those things alone were able to lift over 34,000 children up a rung in the economic ladder, and over 160,000 families up a rung on the economic ladder. That we said we can both invest in local law enforcement. We said we're taking an all the above approach when it comes to public safety. And that meant make historic investments in local law enforcement, providing more resources for technology and intelligence, more collaboration and sharing between localized jurisdictions, putting record investments in our state's attorneys and our U.S. attorney, and working in partnership with our attorney general. And now we're looking at the state now, as we're coming to the end of the year, homicide rates down, non-fatal shooting rates down.
Yeah.
You know, this is going to be the first year in 9 years that Baltimore City will not see 300 homicides, and it's not going to get close. So we're showing that if we said it, we meant it. And I think the thing that we're really proud of is that we keep our promises. The things we say we can get done, we're going to be intentional. It's going to be hard. No one said it's going to be simple, but we're going to get it done. And those are some of the things that I think I'm really proud of, that Maryland is doing big things again. And we're just getting started. And we're doing it together. That's another thing that I'm very, very proud of. That we're showing that you can have conversations where everyone can feel heard, and know that partnership actually produces progress. That we plan on going everywhere and bringing everyone along. And I think people are seeing that we meant that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to take a 10-minute break, and I ask that all the regents assemble at the top of the steps and all the presidents behind them at the top of the steps so we can make a quick switch. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. As you should. Good luck.
Next item on our agenda is our safety moment. Next, we'll have Chief Leon give that safety moment for us. Chief, welcome.
Morning and thank you. There's no pressure going after the governor, right? I don't know who choreographed this, but thank you. So safety and security is near and dear to our hearts here at UMB. It's the center of everything that we do here on campus. For our students, staff, and faculty to reach their full potential, they have to feel safe in their space. And public safety doesn't seem like it goes hand in hand with recruiting and retention, but it does. We're recruiting for student, staff, and faculty. We want the best and the brightest to come here. And oftentimes the crime of Baltimore City overplays our recruiting efforts. Just the crime in general across the country is up. Baltimore City is no different. UMB is different than the other USM systems in that we're an open campus here in the heart of Baltimore. Near campus, we have several high crime areas where our students, staff, and faculty live, travel, visit. Near campus this year alone, there have been over 500 violent crimes. Here on campus on the UMB, had two assaults and 2 robberies. And those numbers are pleasing, but we work tirelessly day in and day out to ensure the safety of student staff. If we look at it per capita, the 4 seems like it's a pleasing number. It's 99% below the average for Baltimore City, but there's still work that needs to be done. And what makes UMB different? Like why is our approach to crime reduction different here on campus than it is in Baltimore as a whole? Well, initially I need to go over our patrol areas. So not only do we patrol the University of Maryland, Baltimore, we also patrol the University of Baltimore. We also have patrol in the University of Maryland Medical Center emergency room. And those 3 components in the heart of Baltimore City is a challenge day in and day out to ensure that our expectation of safety. And some of the feats that, well, I can go through. We have 83 sworn police officers, 122 civilian staff. And the civilian staff are security officers, dispatchers, and our administrative staff. That probably seems like a lot of staff for 65. But with struggles that we have in the city with safety, sure we maintain our staff standard. Our staffing is, we have 7 openings for police officers. Just heard Governor Moore talk about the challenges of recruiting and retention. We're no different. Things that make us a little unique: culture at UMB that shows the appreciation for our police officers and our staff. Many of our schools treat the staff as if they're part. That goes a long way for recruitment. Our team feels valued and are appreciative for support. Some of the things that we do that are different than the other campus police departments, we have a co-response model. And our co-response model is in our community outreach and support team. Co-response model, quite honestly, is social workers paired with police officers, patrol campus. Our calls for service aren't extremely high, so it's a proactive approach, vulnerable population where they're at. And not only do we work with the School of Social Work and our graduate school on those programs, we have a case manager that's assigned to the program that goes through the follow-up with our vulnerable population or those that are in services, which is unique in a lot of ways, especially for this police department. We also have a partnership. We heard the governor talk about returning citizens. We have a partnership with the Peace Team. It's a group of returning citizens. I didn't know what a returning citizen was until a few years ago, but a returning citizen is someone that was incarcerated for a period of time that has found a purpose and want to give back. Our Peace Team or our credible messengers, our returning citizens, they have street credibility that none of us have on the streets. They are violence interrupters. They work with our community stakeholders, and coupled with our social work component, they add to the resources. It's about building those relationships. And, you know, that is huge in how we help work with and are integrated with our community. You heard Dr. Gerald talk about UMB is invested into West Baltimore, invested in Baltimore, but University of Maryland, Baltimore Police and Public Safety are invested in it as well. We are out there building relationships. It really comes down to trust and legitimacy with our stakeholders. And so as I'm talking about that, I don't want to really bore you with statistics, but we have placed 219 individuals in jobs. I've never heard of a police department anywhere that placed people in jobs. So we're out not only helping and interacting, we're helping people respond, helping people reach their goal and their destination. And, you know, with the job placement, vital records are very important. Birth certificates, Maryland IDs, social security cards. Police department here at UMB is heavily involved in that. We pay for our citizens in our community that need those vital documents, and we work with, you know, it's just like the FAFSA we were talking about, right? It's a complicated process to work through. So we have police officers and our administrative staff work with our vulnerable population to get those documents. And then we also have placed 129 individuals in drug treatment, 185 vital records, had over 4,125 engagements over a 3-year period. And that's with our police officers and our social workers working with our community. We also, couple in with that, we also have community health. Our community health workers are members of the community, and they focus on individuals 25 and below. And, you know, it's really the young adults, and they're looking to interact with our homeless population, those in need of any services. And so we have all that grouped under one roof, outreach and support team. And it really makes getting to the resources much more attainable in a fashion that works, quite honestly. So we talk a lot about public safety. So our approach really is we want to build trust and legitimacy with our community. And we do it one interaction at a time. And we talk a lot about service excellence. We treat people with dignity and respect where they're at. And we do what we say we're going to do. In the past, I've been doing this almost 30 years now. In the past, when you come up to age with a vulnerable adult, you would try to hand them a social services program. There was never a soft method to follow up to make sure the services were rendered. Really take pride in it. We talk a lot about safety in general, but you know, in public safety, there's more to it. We want to create a warm and inviting environment. We want them to feel safe and secure in their space. So, you know, we do this regularly. We've replaced over 200 lights on campus. And you talk about replacing lights, but some of the lights are BG&E lights, some of the lights are city lights. We've invested into the community to place those things. And you know, we're really to keep our crime low here on campus. It's the layered approach. It's the building relationships with the community. Just doing what we're saying we're going to do. Getting after it. Questions if you have, open for it. And look, please don't ask me as many questions as Governor Moore.
Any questions for the chief?
I have one.
Yes, Ike.
I stepped out for a moment. The relationship with the city police?
Commissioner Worley is a wonderful man. We've been working with him hand in glove, especially on the fringe, on the outskirts of campus, Utah Street, across MLK. We meet with them regularly. Central District has been really supportive.
Any other questions for the chief?
I have a comment.
Yes.
This is not a question you'll be glad to hear. It's a comment, and it's a thank you for, last night I walked from the Marriott Hotel over to the location where we had our Regents dinner last night, and there was a uniformed police officer standing on each corner. And I went up to one of them and thanked him for being there, and he said, "We're here to make sure everybody is safe on the street." So we appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Well, thank you, Chief. Thanks for coming this morning and speaking to us, and thank you for what you do.
Thank you all.
We now have the Chancellor's report.
Morning. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Chief. Good to be with you again. I know we're all grateful to Governor Moore for being with us this morning and sharing his priorities as we all head into the legislative session. I know I speak for everyone in saying we appreciate his leadership, and I would say his friendship. And I can tell you it's genuine. He expects much of us, and that is a measure of how much he values us. Chair Gooden and I see that all the time. We have the privilege of spending time with him. Speaking of the legislative session, I'm happy to officially welcome Susan Lawrence. Susan, please. Susan is our new Vice Chancellor for Government Relations. Happily, she is wearing us down. She has engaged fully, and we're happy to have you. And although I think I mentioned this last time, I want to again bid a fond farewell to Vice Chancellor Tim McDonough, who actually interrupted his tenure, which has started at NACUBO, in order to be with us today for this Board of Regents meeting. Thank you, Tim. So as we close out another calendar year together and prepare for the holiday break, I have a gift for you. Brevity. This report should be the my shortest of the year. That is helped by the fact that we met just a few short weeks ago. But even so, in the intervening weeks, there is much good news to celebrate. So I do have some highlights. Let's start with our host, UMB. All of you who know me know how deeply I value partnership. I don't like this. I prefer this. And there's plenty of that to be found at UMB just in these past few weeks. In partnership with Wexford Science and Technology, UMB just added the last beam to 4 MLK, which you saw in the video. That's a tower that is not only going to transform the biopark, but really the entire gateway to West Baltimore. It's a fitting entrance to this city. And you also heard, in partnership with UMBC, UMB is creating a $4 million NIH accelerator to grow faculty developed technologies in biomedicine and in the life sciences. And with the Prince George's County Libraries, UMB's School of Nursing is bringing needed health resources to underserved communities. With College Park Smith School, UMB is launching a dual MD MBA program to help physicians manage the complex technological and financial systems that are so much a part of practicing medicine these days. And through UMB's Empower partnership with College Park, the universities together achieved a top 20 ranking in NSF's annual research survey, with combined expenditures of over $1.2 billion. That is a one-year, $86 million climb. President Gerald, congratulations to you for all of this and to the partners I've mentioned. Elsewhere across the USM, Towson University announced a $150 million renovation of Smith Hall, where TU will build a state-of-the-art communications and media hub. The conversion is part of a massive effort to renovate or replace 1.3 million square feet of Towson's campus. The investments to do that total over $1.2 billion. Thank you, President Ginsburg. UMES is also looking at growth, breaking ground on its agricultural research and education center. It's going to be a modern space for teaching, research, and extension that will support agribusiness and regional economic growth. Here's another piece of good news from UMES. The university just won $5 million from the U.S. Department of Education to accelerate its push to Research One status. The grant is going to be used to recruit faculty, doctoral students, scientists, mentors, all focused on three challenges: climate change, AI, and healthcare, and specifically on generating new knowledge in areas with documented gaps in research on the African American experience. Congratulations, President Anderson. At UMSES, a $2 million award from NOAA supports a 3-year project to explore how existing infrastructure like wastewater treatment plants could be used to mitigate global warming. It's part of a White House initiative to support new ocean-based climate solutions. Thank you, President Dennison. Bowie State's partnership with the Alliance for the Chesapeake Bay is paying dividends already, as the group won federal dollars for conservation and restoration projects. Some of these dollars will support its work with Bowie, developing curricula in environmental studies, providing paid internships for students, and building a pipeline of diverse professionals in environmental and climate science. Thank you, President Breaux. At UMBC, researchers made the first ever observation of a virus latching on to another virus, so it could enter the host organism and replicate its genetic material. I read a little bit more about this, Valerie. Fascinating. This discovery was first published in a highly regarded journal, the Journal of the International Society for Microbial Ecology. But here's what I wanted to tell you. it's in a way a horror story. And it was too good not to make it into the lay media. Some of you may have seen the publicity in the Washington Post and maybe other places about a vampire virus. Because the virus, it's like grabbing onto the neck of another virus. So you're distinguished, Valerie, for your faculty creating a vampire. In all seriousness, this has great promise in terms of creating new avenues for antiviral therapy. So after the laugh about the vampire, it's important. Thank you, Valerie. The University of Baltimore has been named an inaugural host partner for the Maryland Corps program, which we just talked about, which the governor talked about. Governor Moore's effort to strengthen Maryland's workforce through service learning, volunteerism, opportunities to match talent with need. You have heard that it's the administration's keystone program in terms of public service. So President Schmoke, well done. Coppin State hosted TEDCO's Black Female Founders Forum, which unpacked the unique and uniquely tough challenges that Black women face as entrepreneurs, especially in securing capital for their venture. And then, and I wasn't there for this, but this is what I understand, President Jenkins, in a stroke of genius, the VCs, the venture capitalists and the investors at the program were invited to the stage to put their money where their mouth is. How's that for solicitation? So thank you, President Jenkins. UMGC, flexing its muscle in cybersecurity. The university hosted the Cyber Maryland Annual Conference, joining academia, industry, and government for its efforts to build an inclusive cyber workforce. UMGC won Maryland's Cybersecurity Diversity Trailblazer Award. And UMGC's cybersecurity team has notched 7 top 3 wins this year alone in national and global competitions. Provost Palmiero, congratulations. Frostburg State, recognized by Phi Kappa Phi as a Circle of Excellence Silver Chapter. Phi Kappa Phi is the nation's oldest and most selective collegiate honor society spanning academic disciplines. This year, the university inducted 36 students, faculty, and alumni into the Honor Society. Thank you, Interim President D'Elia. And at Salisbury, President Lynn LaPree made many exciting announcements during her recent State of the University address. New programs in music therapy, engineering, communications, a strategic innovation fund, seeding projects that move SU forward, and plans to formalize a graduate school at Salisbury and an office of research, setting the stage for growth in students, in prominence, in rankings, in revenue. Congratulations, President LaPree. Now, speaking of research, College Park has established an Office of Undergraduate Research. That is a university-wide enterprise to create a culture and community around undergraduate research and scholarship, something that so many students expect, are looking for, and find value in. This opens up opportunities and discovery across the many departments at College Park. And Daryl got news last week, shared by the rest of us in the media, that the Washington Commanders are going to move their business operations from FedEx Field to College Park's thriving Discovery District. And the significance of that is that it opens up many opportunities for partnerships, internships, and joint projects for the university. Huge win for the university and its students, and a huge win for that football team. So congratulations, President Pines. At our regional centers, the universities at Shady Grove is distributing $500 Jumpstart scholarships to all new students enrolling at USG this spring. It's an incentive that's been so effective in attracting local students and defraying their upfront costs. USM at Hagerstown, also a great success. Biggest fundraising event of the year, their annual Feast and Frolic celebration. This is a record, Jacob, I'm sure, raising almost $100,000 for student scholarships from that community. And at Southern Maryland, our USM at Southern Maryland hosted Tri-County educators and employers at events reinforcing its mission to create a workforce with staying power. Students who stay in Southern Maryland for their bachelor's degree because of our regional higher education center and then invest their skills and earning back into the community that raised them. Dr. Abel, I saw that the TEDCO had a piece on how state investments in Southern Maryland's Aero Park Innovation District is going to advance USMSM's pioneering work in autonomous technologies, which is so prevalent on your campus. So Dr. Kadimian, Dr. Abel, Dr. Ashby, thank you. One more achievement to mention, this one out of the USM Office for Academic and Student Affairs, Dr. Nancy Shapiro and her team won $4 million from the U.S. Department of Education to build and train a core of peer mentors system-wide. So this is for all the institutions to build and train a core of peer mentors who will help underserved students navigate their first year of college by connecting them with resources already available on our campuses, such as writing centers, math centers, mental health services, academic support services, and all those spaces and programs that nurture a sense of belonging, of community, and connection. So congratulations to all who were involved in that successful grant application and in the project. In closing, as we look to a new year, I thank you all for your work and especially for what that work means. In my holiday message, I emphasized that I view education as our greatest act of optimism in a world that needs optimism and hope. That every day we gather together, this community of educators, a resilient community of optimists, to prove that there is a better way forward, that we can light the path for others. Speaking for myself, the fact that you all join me in this work, that you too have faith in our power to bring light to the darkness, makes me very proud and very grateful. Madam Chair, this concludes my report.
Thank you, Chancellor. Any questions for the Chancellor? Okay, hearing none, we'll have the Council of University System Presidents, Dr. Bro.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just like to acknowledge the outstanding leadership of the Chancellor throughout this year. There is so much that we just heard about today. And it doesn't just happen. It happens with strong leaders. Thank you, Chair Gooden. Thank you, Chancellor Perman. Would you please give them a round of applause? And happy holidays to everyone as we go into the holiday season. I'd like to acknowledge our host for today, Dr. Bruce Jarrell, and the entire UMB campus community for hosting this morning's event. Also, it was just wonderful to hear from our governor this morning about his priorities and how our system and our individual institutions are valued by the Moore administration. As you heard him say, he's been on our campuses, he's out and about, and he's getting to know us firsthand. CUS met once on December 4th since the last board meeting. The discussions at that meeting included an informational briefing by Assistant Attorney General Bainbridge on Title VI. And then following that, the president shared a general overview of the environment on our respective campuses. After the meeting on the 4th, as you've heard earlier, the Presidents and Chancellors Council joined higher education leaders from across the state for a campus safety summit, co-sponsored by MHEC and the University System of Maryland at the Colwell Center. The summit included talks on data coordination and intelligence in campus safety, as well as lessons learned from Michigan State University. There were also 2 panels, as you heard earlier mentioned, featuring student affairs leaders and presidents discussing best practices and lessons learned on our campuses in Maryland. The summit ended with participants answering questions related to discussions of the day and a commitment to keep up this important work at campuses across Maryland. That concludes my report, Madam Chair, and thank you and happy holidays to everyone.
Thank you. I guess brevity is the order of the day.
Yes, it is. Are there any questions?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll have the report from the University System of Maryland Student Council, Mr. Siddiqui.
Good morning. Happy holidays to everyone. Chair Gooden, Chancellor Perman, Board of Regents, and University Presidents. Thank you so much for inviting us here. We had our December general meeting last week at Towson University, and we thank President Ginsburg and Dr. Herte for welcoming us. We interviewed 7 student regent candidates and then forwarded 4 finalists to Chancellor Perman. The council is also continuing to work on the graduate student housing resolution and is reaching out for the expertise and perspective of more international graduate students, as well as connecting to international student service officers or their equivalents across the campuses. We also welcomed our Director of Communications and Marketing to the team, who hopes to increase student connectedness across the system and create some tools that can sustain for future years. We have also reviewed the applicants for the USM Student Forum, and we are very grateful to Dr. Kadamian and USG for being willing to host this event early next year. And this is for Benavides, she's saying, I've been in conversation with the USG's Assistant Director of Events, and we are coordinating the logistics. I also attended the Campus Safety Summit earlier this month, learning more about the importance of increasing channels of communication and developing relationships proactively to maintain trust during times of conflict. Student leaders and students in general balance multiple roles that are further challenged when issues arise that directly affect the campuses and learning environments. We appreciate your mentorship and continued support in helping students rise to the occasion and strive for communication that is respectful, safe, and transparent. Thank you so much and happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Any questions for Mr. Siddiqui? Seeing none, thank you. We'll now have the Council of University System Faculty, Dr. Haverbeck.
Good morning, Chair Gooden, Chancellor Perman, Regents, and University professors. Thank you for having me today. Today, I'm going to provide you with an overview of the work CUSIP has been doing since we met last November. As it is the end of the year, I always try to reflect upon the moments that I've had this year, what we've accomplished, and the things still on my to-do list. And when I did this, when I reflected in this way regarding CUSIP this year and the 4 months since I became chair, I'm in awe and very thankful for all of the hard work of every member and committee and all of the work that they have put forth to focus on the initiatives that are of import to faculty and the sincere commitment to staying student-centered and aligned with the USM mission and vision. I am also touched by the spirit of collaboration within the council, between the councils, and within the USM. As I have said before, and I think that we all know, Maryland is a really special state. We are forward-moving, we are inclusive, and just by example of having shared governance at this meeting and heard shows that. This year, we have also at CUSIP highlighted the importance of collaboration, and my experiences on CUSIP have highlighted that collaboration and need for it even more. Today, I will briefly share some of the highlights from the committees, which are further outlined in my report. We met on Wednesday, and the Rules Committee came and we had the second read and voted on and unanimously approved, which I'm very excited about, changes to the bylaws. We have been working on this for over a year, and as Governor Moore said, we had every voice heard. We made these as inclusive as possible, and it really went down to meetings. Do we have in-person meetings? Do we have online meetings? How do we have people vote? And so we got those passed, and I'm thrilled. The awards committee currently has 49 applications. They're reviewing them, and they will be meeting. I believe they actually met on Wednesday, and deliberating, and then they will review and make recommendations to the Board of Regents. The Education Policy Committee, CUSIP, has been offered the opportunity to join Maryland Online, Montgomery College, and the Kerwin Center in co-sponsoring a virtual showcase of best practices for the use of generative AI in teaching and learning next April. A call for proposals is being shared. Faculty Affairs Committee. The committee is working on the broad topics of DEI and academic support personnel. They're focusing their discussion to determine which items and issues are a concern to faculty and are relevant to faculty on institutions across the USM. They're working on those things, and they will be bringing forward recommendations to CUSIP. For the Legislative Affairs Committee, they are discussing work on shared governance, collective bargaining, and organizing the 2024 Annapolis Day. They are also working on resolutions that they will present to CUSIP General Board in January. The Research Committee is discussing the initiatives of how to connect USM intercampus research portals. This area focuses on areas for USM research communities, facilitating identification of collaborators, and having USM faculty be able to find potential student interns. I want to end my comments this year in closing by just saying that I want to thank all of you for your time and your work. My time here for the past 4 months has really showed me the genuine caring that you all have and your sincere commitment to working on education with faculty, with students, with staff. And it is very, very much noticed and appreciated by me and the committee. I look forward to our collective efforts in 2024, and I hope that you all have a wonderful, restful, and love-filled new year.
Thank you. Any questions for Dr. Haberbeck? Seeing none, thank you. We'll now have the Council of University System Staff, Dr. Patrice.
Chair Gooden, Chancellor Perman, Regents, USM presidents, good morning. I'd first like to thank President Gerald and UMB for hosting us today. Your hospitality has been wonderful and we're grateful. In my report for December 2022, I promised to keep things short because I said I knew we were limping into the end of the year. This year doesn't feel any different. So as before, I will keep my report brief for you today. As my written report mentions, and my peers have also mentioned, the Joint Councils meeting was held on November 15th. This was our first in-person Joint Councils meeting since November 2019, and we had really great feedback that demonstrated it was a resounding success. My report contains more details, but I'd like to add that we thank UMBC for hosting us and creating an environment for our productive discussion. We are continuing to make progress on our goals, especially in the area of duplicative fees for staff who take advantage of the tuition or mission benefit at their home institutions. Thank you to the USM presidents and campus VPs for engaging in this issue and help us make progress, and to Senior Vice Chancellor Ellen Herbst for her support. In an effort to continue the discussion about ombuds access on our campuses, I'll be meeting with Chancellor Perman in early January. While finances are tight, especially for our smaller campuses, we do feel ombuds people are great resources that can actually create efficiencies and reduce turnover on our campuses. So I look forward to exploring ways that we might make this a reality. We're midway through collecting nominations for the Board of Regents Staff Awards with a due date of February 9th. So thank you to the presidents and the campuses for the recruitment of those nominations. Finally, I'd like to acknowledge the staff and many faculty who have been helping navigate the tensions on our campus of late. Our students have been struggling, and our staff, especially in leadership and student affairs, have spent countless hours monitoring protests, counseling students, responding to concerned parents and constituents, and trying to create a safe space for all. It is critical, exhausting, valuable work. Florida Higher Education is having an environment where difficult conversations and growth can happen. Staff who are on the front lines in Res Life, counseling centers, activities units, and so many others are committed to ensuring the core values of higher education are realized so our students can succeed in these challenging times. So thank you to the Regents, USM staff, USM presidents for a productive year so far, and I hope you are all able to take a much-deserved break to truly rest and recover from 2023. I look forward to continuing to work with you all.
Any questions for Dr. Patricia? Seeing none, thank you for your report. Now time for public comment. Seeing as we've received no comments for this meeting, I'll move directly to the consent agenda. Decisions regarding which items to include on the consent agenda were made by me and the committee chairs. However, any regent may request that an item be removed from the consent agenda for separate review and discussion. Before I move approval of the consent agenda, I ask if there are any items that any regent would like removed from the consent agenda for separate review and discussion.
I would like to remove an item from the consent agenda for today. The proposed policy revisions to establish the policy concerning scheduling of academic assignments on dates of religious observance and campus-based for faith-based or religious practice.
Okay, and with the exception of that item, I will move the other items be approved. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? And Regent Halal, I'll turn the podium, the microphone over to you to explain what you'd like changed.
Thank you so much. I know that this is typically a discussion that would happen in committee, and we did start it last ed policy committee meeting. And so, following some concerns that I expressed, just simply about the so for those of you who don't know, haven't had a chance to look over this policy yet, it's basically to ensure that the system is in compliance with a bill that was passed by Governor Moore earlier this legislative last year, this last session. And so within this policy, we're updating the existing policy, but it's pretty significant changes. So the entire policy was pretty much rewritten. And the main purpose of the bill that was passed is to ensure that reasonable academic accommodations for students to practice sincerely held faith-based or religious beliefs. The only addition that I would like to make to the policy is between the lines, an accommodation requested under this policy, and the next line after a student shall be provided reasonable alternative accommodations. I'd like to propose that we add a line, and I just want to preface before I read out this line that After a conversation in committee, I went back and spoke with Elena. Thank you so much for the conversation that we had and the feedback that you provided. This line is directly based off of the request or the recommendation that she made. And I also made sure to follow up with Zakia and with Allison as well. This is all well within the nature of our shared governance perspectives and feedback that we got during the conversations that had pretty much since August about this policy. So the line that I'm looking to add is really to add clarity to students who may be reading this policy and also to our institutions to understand more about, like what the obligation is. Should a student make a request for an accommodation and the institution deem it not a reasonable accommodation, this is kind of like what would happen. The line is, if a student's request for a specific accommodation is denied, the institution should consider alternative accommodations that the student may request consistent with institutional policy and procedures. This is kind of this is already something that's essentially assumed. When a student makes a request based off of legal precedent, there is an assumption or an implication that the institution should be having a follow-up conversation with the student. But I just, based off of conversations and feedback that I heard during the student council and that we also heard from other areas of shared governance, it's not necessarily clear that this is the expectation. And just for the sake of clarity for any students that may be reading this policy to know that this is something that they can do, they can make a follow-up recommendation, and they don't necessarily need to go instantly to the grievance procedure that the institution has implemented for them. And I'm open to, I think we're doing to discuss. Yeah.
Well, I will move it. Do we have any discussion on adding this line to the? And for those of you who don't know, Elena is one of our attorneys. No discussion. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion.
Thank you.
The next order of business is the committee reports, and the first one is from Education, Policy, and Student Life. And it's the committee report from Regent Gordine. She'll be introducing an update on the Kerwin Center for Academic Innovation. I'll turn it over to Regent Gordine.
Thank you, Chair Gooden. When I was thinking about education policy agenda items that would benefit from an update to the entire board, the Kerwin Center for Academic Innovation was an obvious choice. I've been really fortunate enough to work with the center and its acting director, Dr. Nancy O'Neill, who I am delighted to introduce this morning to bring you this update. Nancy, turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Regent Gordine. Let me make sure I've got the microphone here working and the clicker. So thank you very much. My name is Nancy O'Neill. As Regent Gordine said, I'm the acting director of the Kerwin Center, and I'm delighted to provide an overview of the center and some of our initiatives. So the Kerwin Center was established in 2013 by the USM Board of Regents. The creation of the center signaled a new role for a state system office as a focal point for advancing academic innovation, both within Maryland, in the system in Maryland, and across higher education nationally. The Kerwin Center grew out of nearly a decade of course redesign work being led out of the system office, and then Chancellor Brett Kerwin was interested in continuing to position the system specifically as a resource for the development of best practices in higher education. And looking at the timeline, over the next few years, the center was renamed to reflect a sharper focus on academic innovation based on growing interest in this across our institutions, and to recognize Brett Kerwin's commitment to academic transformation and student success. And so our mission is to leverage the power of multi-institutional collaboration to increase access, affordability, and achievement of high-quality credentials for Maryland students. We've recently started to review the center's mission and initiatives in light of the current USM strategic plan, and I'm pleased to report that there is strong alignment between the plan and our work, including grounding our work, as the plan does, in a commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is our vision. And it's really centered around fostering a collaborative culture of academic innovation. And you may have noticed that I haven't made strong reference to technology so far. We do work to create opportunities for productive engagement with new or emerging learning technologies. And at the same time, we don't just focus on technology, as we know that there are other ways to innovate as a system and out of a system level center. So here is an overview of some of our work. The top boxes represent areas of concern for us. Of course, there is access, affordability, and achievement for students, which really grounds all of our work, but is particularly powerful in our work on open educational resources. We also work with our institutions to help make student learning more visible, especially learning that cuts across curricular and co-curricular spaces, such as interprofessional education in health sciences. We have supported pilots that advance the robust use of learning technologies, as I mentioned, particularly in high need areas like mathematics. We are doing quite a bit around building an evidence base for what works in teaching and learning through support of research into teaching and learning. And starting next month, we will be working with USM teaching and learning centers to undergo a self-study process designed to help understand the strengths and the growth areas for each center and for the system as a whole, collaboratively and collectively. So with my remaining time, I'd like to focus on just a couple of our initiatives in more detail. So the Maryland Open Source Textbook Initiative, or MOST, is our oldest initiative. It began in 2013 to provide a statewide opportunity for faculty and institutions to explore the promise of openly licensed educational resources, known as OER, to increase affordability for students and to make improvements in teaching and learning. And arguably, if OER is known for anything, it is as a free or low-cost alternative to commercial instructional materials, which can be quite costly. And the free part is important. So a recent national survey of college students found that 66% report that they skipped buying assigned course material, a textbook, an access code, or both during their time in school because of the cost. And we know that this issue disproportionately affects low-income and Pell-eligible students. So OERs are openly licensed instructional materials that are available at little to no cost to students. OER can include textbooks, course readings, simulations, games, syllabi, quizzes, problem sets, virtually any material that can be used for instructional purposes. And so I wanted to give you a couple of examples. So here we have an interdisciplinary open assignment from Montgomery College. We have an open textbook with case studies in business ethics from the University of Baltimore, and a multimedia introductory composition website produced by a faculty member at Coppin State University. Creators of OER retain copyright on their work, and through open licensing kind of give advanced permission to users to do things with the materials, like reuse the OER in your course, or revise the OER to make it a better fit for one's course. So here, in this example, if the business ethics case studies were all, say, US-based, and I was teaching international business, I could revise them to focus on more global concerns, provided I give attribution to the original author, which the license requires. And this way I can customize to meet the needs of my students, to meet their interests, to meet their learning needs. Through MOST, we offer faculty mini grants for adoption and creation of OER. We build capacity to utilize OER through webinars and convenings, and we conduct research. So here is a recent example of our statewide summits, an example of our reach with more than 40 institutions across Maryland participating just a few weeks ago out at SU. And thank you, President Lepre, for joining us and giving your opening remarks. So a little bit about impact. So through MOST, we have since 2016, with modest funding, supported faculty in converting 210 courses to OER across 29 institutions. That's again across the state. This has resulted in just shy of $23 million in cumulative cost savings with a conservative calculation that we do, and a reach of about 160,000 students. And so what do we mean by modest funding? I'll give you an example. This past year, an investment of $32,000 to fund 3 OER projects here within the system had a combined projected cost savings of $90,750 for 1,100 students, a threefold return on investment in just the first year. A 3-year projection on the impact of these grants equals a cost savings of $272,250. And the impact doesn't end with cost savings. So I'm going to look at the second set of data points on this slide. More than half of Maryland students that we've surveyed through our MOST initiative report using their traditional materials, their commercial materials, 2 to 3 times per month or less. In contrast, nearly 2/3 of students reported using their materials in their MOST courses 2 to 3 times per week or more. So there's really something going on here about engagement that we really are happy about. I'm going to transition to a second initiative just to talk briefly about the ways in which we're trying to help make more visible student learning of interprofessional team-based competencies in health sciences. So here's how we're defining IPE for this project. And we feel like we have a responsibility to help students develop the skills and competencies needed to lead and meaningfully contribute to interprofessional teams in the workplace, again, in healthcare fields. So this slide addresses why IPE is so important. I'm not going to read this. It's in your packet. But I will say that this is related to diabetes in particular, and the research that's cited here has shown that IPE opportunities improve both students' ability to provide care and patients' self-management of diabetes. So there's sort of a twofold benefit when we do more with IPE. Nationally, we have a need to strengthen opportunities for students to engage in robust IPE activities over time at progressively higher levels of challenge. There's a lot of IPE going on, but it could be sporadic. It could be targeted towards particular students and not others. So we really want to be thinking comprehensively about how we're doing IPE. And we're seeing some of the same things in Maryland. And then national entities are beginning to call for IPE to take place over time, progressing from early to advanced experiences. So that's at the heart of our Maryland IPE project. And I want to acknowledge the institutions that have jumped in with us on this initiative. We're really so grateful to their participation. And I want to especially acknowledge UMB here. Dr. Heather Condon is the director of UMB's Center for IPE, and she is my co-lead on this project and provides subject matter expertise in IPE for the benefit of the whole project. So we have partnered with Texas Tech University to run a Maryland instance of their IPE registry, which is allowing the project institutions to catalog all of their existing IPE activities in a lot of detail about things like sources of funding, staffing, assessment opportunities that they're using to understand how we're doing with our students, so they can begin to understand where they have gaps and how they can begin to fill the gaps. And we have outlined 3 tiers of digital badges representing early, middle, and advanced experiences that will be unique to each institution, but will be leading towards the development of shared competencies. And those competencies are in, excuse me, 4 domain areas that are listed on the left. That's out of the National IPEC, the IPE Collaborative. So broadening out from that example, commonalities across our initiatives include collaboration, expanding our vision of what's possible, creating a safe space to thoughtfully experiment, to problem solve, and to showcase institutional and individual accomplishments and successes. And with that, I want to thank you for inviting me, and I'm happy to take a question if there's one.
Well, thank you for the presentation. And Bill, you want the first question?
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Chair. My question is, there's been a lot of publicity about the growing financial challenges faced by the state. Are you getting within the Kirwan Center any feedback on what may or may not happen with regard to the Kirwan Center's budget? I mean, it's a huge item in the state's overall budget. Are you hearing anything, or can you share anything with us with regard to that?
I'm looking at Allison. I haven't heard anything. If there's movement to want to talk about that, I'd certainly be interested in it.
Regent Wood, I am not sure I could stand to be corrected by Senior Vice Chancellor Herbst that the Kirwan Center budget is a line item in itself. So this is something that's supported through the system office. And I'm not sure, and Regent Herbst will correct me, that it would be so granular at the state level that there would be harm done to the Kerwin Center budget.
Bill, I think you're thinking of the blueprint for Maryland, which is a very large budget item.
That is what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, it's not this.
Okay,
We're small and mighty.
I was lumping that together.
Yes.
Thank you for that clarification.
So yes.
I think we've had a very important report here from Director O'Neill. I would encourage the presidents to make the comment about saving students money through emphasizing our work with OERs. Sure, we heard it from the governor. Everybody, rightly so, is talking about affordability, and everybody focuses on tuition, which is understandable. Here is a really tangible way that we are reducing costs, and we ought to shout that from the top of the mountain. The other comment that I would make relates to the IP, to the interprofessional education work that certainly is going on here at UMB, but also through the Kerwin Center on other campuses as well. Interprofessional education in the health sciences, which Nancy has focused on here, is a requirement for accreditation among virtually all, maybe all, the health science professions in terms of accrediting a nursing school or a medical school. The idea of badging, I'm not sure has gotten around to the accreditors. That's something that we ought to publish and show ourselves as one way of being preeminent.
Absolutely.
Dr. O'Neill, one of the questions I have is, so many of these things are wonderful, but how do the students know they exist and how do they get access to them?
It's a great question. So I'll give just the example of OER. Since we've really been at it for a while in terms of building our institutional capacities to not just bring OER into the classroom, but to really think about ways we can revise it to meet the needs of our students. But also it's really, really important that we advertise what we're doing. And so, for example, about a year ago, we did a webinar that featured Towson University and Montgomery College. Because it's statewide, we like to make sure we have a balance of different sectors. And they are both taking the lead, I'd say, in the state and frankly, nationally around course marking. So course marking is using your sort of systems that already exist where you might give attributes to different courses like online, hybrid, in person, experiential learning, other kinds of things. But particularly using course marking as a way to show students when they are looking for courses, signing up for sections of courses, what kinds of materials we're using in those courses. And sometimes we course mark on affordability. So we might say these are low cost courses. They might set a bar of say under $40. These are zero textbook cost. And that's really important because we still might have lab fees and other things that we need to keep in mind. But maybe zero textbook cost types courses. Or in some cases, moving directly into saying we are marking on OER. So we're actually communicating to students that there is this alternative out here that's really exciting for a lot of reasons. But when we were at SU recently talking about OER, we were talking about the ways we can work with students to engage them in the creation of OER. So how exciting is that to say students are not just consumers of knowledge, they're producers of knowledge. So going to the conversations around undergraduate research and all the other things that we're talking about, this is really how we're moving our thinking about students and partnership with students to be at the forefront of knowledge creation. So there's lots of really exciting things we can do with OER, and talking about it with students is of course vital.
First of all, Nancy, it was a pleasure to serve on the board for a number of years. I'm interested, can you quantify for a 4-year student what this savings would amount to? And that's the first question. Second question is, this seems very logical. I mean, when it was brought up, it's amazing that universities across this country are not embracing this, given the spiraling cost of higher ed. Maybe you can tell me how we benchmark with other institutions.
Sure. Maybe I'll start with that one and then work backwards to your first question. So we are certainly paying attention, and Chancellor Perman knows this, and Allison knows this as well, about how other state legislatures are funding OER for their public institutions. And we're seeing deep investments. There was a few years ago when you sort of had to have a bill in order to receive funding. We had a bill that designated the Kirwan Center as the kind of hub for OER development for public institutions. And we were very, very grateful to receive $100,000 in that. That same year, we founded a network of state OER initiatives with SUNY and CUNY that each had a line item in their budget of $4 million that remains to this day. They get that every year to do OER work. And so, we're very mindful of the promise and the possibilities that we have here. What I'm also really excited about, and maybe a reason why we don't see it in every course at this point in time, is that OER is not free in terms of the time and effort it takes to create these materials and to maintain these materials. And I want to really acknowledge the fact if we had more funding, we could do more supportive faculty in all of the intellectual effort that it takes to produce these materials. But there are high need areas in disciplines where there is no OER yet. And we would like to be on the forefront of helping to create those materials. I'll give one example from College Park in the School of Public Health. We have a graduate faculty member who is creating OER with her students for her course. That was our mini grant. And she and I had a conversation just yesterday about how she'd like to build OER with her students through 2 online programs that she oversees. I mean, the potential impact in that is tremendous for our students. And so I'm trying to think about, do we need a new different grant category to fund something like that, which is kind of an expansion project. So I want to certainly understand the needs of and interests of our faculty and try to be responsive to that. So I don't think we yet have maybe full OER-based degree programs, for example, although there are sort of Z degree programs, pathways out of 2-year institutions for sort of general education courses, because there is a lot of OER in general education, because there's a lot of general education that's taught across the country. So I think we have roadmaps for how to do that.
Any other questions, Doctor? Thank you for an excellent presentation.
Thank you very much.
Our next, we have an item from the Committee on Economic Development and Technology Commercialization regarding the University of Maryland Institute for Health Computing. Regent Leggett.
I'm going to call on our institute to come forward because we had a wonderful meeting at our last session to, in fact, look at what we've done over the last few years and to study it in great detail about what we've had and what we've done and what makes the collaboration and the work so important for us. I assume that all the people are here to carry us through the discussion for the day. And so at this point in time, I think we're going to go ahead and proceed with Bruce and others to walk us through the entire process itself. But you'll find it very interesting. And the chair and the chancellor thought that from our prior discussion, we should have a discussion here with the entire board. It is important not only for the region, but for the entire state. It's a huge endeavor. In fact, there was a piece on, I think it was 60 Minutes last week, and it was a wonderful piece. The only disappointment I think that I had was that they did not refer to what we're doing here in Maryland. But beyond that, I think that it's a very good indication of where this effort is going.
Thank you, Regent Leggett. And I will introduce on behalf of President Pines and myself. About 4 years ago, the University System of Maryland made a commitment to Montgomery County to develop educational and research programs in Montgomery County. about a year ago, the county executive made a significant financial commitment to really engage us in developing this program in Rockville. And the concept behind the program was to use data from our medical system, UMMS, and use a lot of healthcare knowledge from our medical school and other schools here in Baltimore, and our high-end computing and AI expertise at College Park to stand up this institute. So President Pines and I put this idea together. We had Montgomery County support for it. We also added significant Empower funding support for this. And then we appointed 3 leaders. And 2 of the leaders are here today. It's Dr. Sujal Bista from College Park, Dr. Brad Marin from UMB, and the third member is not here, Dr. Warren D'Souza, who is at UMMS. And I would simply add that UMMS, this is a 3-way partnership, and it's really added significant dimension to it because the data that we have as part of our medical system goes quite deep and is quite extensive. So with that, I would ask Dr. Beast and Dr. Marin to come over here.
While you're doing that, Bruce, let me make sure that the public clearly understand when he said county executive a year or so ago, it is the current county executive, Mark Eldridge. And I want to make sure that he's acknowledged his hard work because the county did put up a great deal of work. I think we initially put the land up for some years ago for development for Amazon, but make sure that people clearly understand that and give him credit for the great work that he's doing.
He has been a strong supporter of this and has gotten stronger in his support over time. So yes, good point.
Well, thank you very much, President Gerald. Thank you very much to this extremely accomplished and esteemed group of leaders. On behalf of my executive co-director and colleague and friend, Sujal, it's our distinct honor to introduce and discuss a little further the Institute for Health Computing. We have a sort of a tag team orientation here. I'll give the first portion of the presentation, and then Dr. Bista will take over for some slides as well. And I think it's critical to reinforce the comments that were just made by Dr. Gerald and his partner, of course, and our co-leader, President Pines, about how this initiative is funded in principle and supported in principle, which really is a unique initiative that brings together the world-class computational expertise at the University of Maryland with the renowned clinical content expertise here at the University of Maryland, Baltimore, with the unique and complex and far-reaching infrastructure of the medical system that is UMMS, which I'll be talking about in greater detail, funded by Montgomery County and a generous matching strategy by Empower, uniting the 2 principal campuses of Maryland with Baltimore in this initiative. So our fundamental goal is to use computational science to improve health and human disease. And in doing so, our focus is to expand the economic development and placemaking in Montgomery County. Our strategy is to integrate academic, industry, federal agencies that serve as the unique infrastructure around the location of the center in North Bethesda, with close adjacency to the National Institutes of Health and other major policy stakers, to make this the most successful, collaborative, and innovative endeavor of its kind that's ever been done. Now, our principal strategy is to use data science, which, as many of you may know, is really in the form of electronic media in all different shapes and sizes at this point in time. We want to take medical records, imaging, exercise data, information on biologics, including genetic information that's protected for safety, but also focus now on social determinants of health and environmental factors that have for too long been overlooked in understanding the risk and trajectory of human disease. These are all electronically analyzed, and we aim to synthesize a composite understanding of how we can anticipate medical problems, treat them more effectively, and align our resources in a more efficient way. It's the data science, though. It's the computational analytics that will be our critical vehicle to accomplishing this successfully, for the purpose of understanding how to subgroup patients with greater clarity, and ultimately align an individual patient with a more appropriate treatment so we can demonstrate clear evidence of our success in terms of better outcomes and a healthier population. I want to take you through a case example that I think I'm very proud of, that exemplifies the potential power of this collaboration, bringing together unique expertise in atmospheric data analysis from the University of Maryland College Park, Amir Sapkota and Abba Gumel, with clinical content expertise, including a trainee in lung disease, Mary Maldari, who conceived of this idea, with the clinical operations and our partners at the University of Maryland Medical System, particularly Warren D'Souza, who was mentioned earlier. The question was whether we could use data science to understand the effect of the Canadian wildfire smoke plume from June that you may remember on our citizens. How did this climate event affect the way people engage with health and human disease? And you can see here from this heat map that simply shows each day of the week by each month of the year over 2018, 19, 22, and 23. We skipped the COVID years not to confound the analysis. And if you focus a little bit on the southern border of the figure, you can identify two periods of time in which toxic amounts of smoke populated greater than 25% of the counties in Maryland. There were 6 days across 3 two-day periods. And it was the data science that drove our focus on these 6 days. Corroborated this information from Environmental Protection Agency sensor data in the city of Baltimore, confirming a 6-fold spike in the concentration of toxic smoke that infiltrated this particular area of Maryland that correlated with our initial findings on those 6 days from the bottom left. And then ultimately turned to over 1 million individual data points in the medical system repository and looked at different parameters that are important for us to understand how this could have affected the wellness and well-being of our community, to find that our suspicions were correct, that there was about a 35% increase in the need to see a doctor or a provider for a heart or lung problem in the hotspot days that were defined by the smoke infiltration compared to other control days that were not defined by changes in the environmental quality of air. So how can we use this to build on our economic strategy? How can we use it to improve the wellness of our patients? Well, I think to understand our capacity better, it's important to focus on the medical system itself for a moment. This on the left side shows the contour of the medical system. It's a 2 million patient cohort of individuals that includes 17 million encounters and over 1 trillion data points. One of the strengths of the state of Maryland is its diversity, not just in terms of traditional categories around race, but to contemporize that concept, think more along the lines of how socioeconomic, acquired drivers of disease are better in understanding how to predict problems when it comes to health. Nonetheless, if we look at the map on the right side, this shows how we can layer different levels of information. The color coding represents social vulnerability index. That's a standardized measure of how access to food resources or access to other resources that are important for health, poverty, other determinants are important but overlooked often in health. And you can see if we overlay each of the different gray dots, which is a geolocalization output from the medical system, allowing us to understand where our at-risk patients are. You can appreciate that, as we might expect, there are densities in Baltimore and in Prince George's County that align with trends in the population of those regions. But also we have new findings here. It focuses our attention on rural areas or areas that may be subject to the effects of, say, smoke from a wildfire in a way that we may not have appreciated unless we had layered this information and then taking into account the social determinants of these patterns. We have an opportunity to address these problems in a multidimensional way and try to really make strong gains. So ultimately, we acknowledge the limitations of the current model, which requires that patients come to a hospital. It's very challenging for a lot of people. We heard that from the governor earlier about accessing resources. Some of us take for granted the ability to get into a car and go to a hospital. That's not the case, actually, for most of the citizens of some of the worst hit areas for access to care. It's just not possible. And instead, we want to transform this model and figure out ways we can use data science to bring healthcare to them, decentralize research in a way that actually can maximize impact and ultimately change the way our businesses interface with health, disease, and improve wellness for our patients.
So first few years, we have decided to work on 6 different areas, and these are the areas we decided to work on, and we believe we're going to make a very big impact in these areas. So we will be located at the heart of the Montgomery County. We all know Montgomery County has a very big life science community. We have NIH, FDA. Those two are the biggest contributors to the health-related research. We also have more than 300 plus biotech companies in Montgomery County. And in Maryland, we have more than 40,000 biotech workers. And this area is commonly referred to as a capital biotech hub. We are third in nation, just below Mission Bay and Boston. And when you look into these rankings, they look into space, they look into patents. We're currently number 1 in patents. They look into NIH funding. We're number 3 in NIH funding. They look for jobs. We're number 4 in jobs in biotech industry. And they also look for VC funding. We are number 8 in VC funding. So we have some room to progress. Montgomery County has Montgomery College and the University of the Shady Group, but they also want a research institution. And that is why presence of the Institute of Health Computing at the heart of Montgomery County is vital. Montgomery County wants us to be a high-tech economic hub. And we looked around because we are new to economic. We are very good in research and we're very good in publishing paper, but like helping economic development is something that is new to us. So we looked into Boston, we looked into Mission Bay and see what worked for them. We found out that they focus on foundational research. They also do a lot of industry partnership and they have a very strong startup programs. So in Institute for Health Computing, we want to use creativity and knowledge to be a driving force for economic development. We'll focus on both foundational research and also translational research. We'll work on developing next generation of talent. We'll also help current professionals stay cutting edge by providing executive education. And we want to bring industry and federal agencies together to work on common problems. If you look into Boston and if you look into Mission Bay, what they don't have is federal agencies. We are very close to federal agencies and we have to use that in our advantage. And we will be doing a lot of events, classes, and workshops to bring the community together. And that is to allow knowledge spillover and also spillover of ideas and have more collaboration. We will support startups by providing computation support and also expertise. That way we can attract more companies and grow the super cluster even bigger. So this is one example. This Wipro is a very big tech company. So it has more than 250,000 workers. They are partnering with ISC to do a foundational research in AI-enabled data analytics and immersive visualization to treat pain and addiction. The second form of partnership is this is an example of another partnership. It's IUCRCs, our NSF-funded programs. It brings together government, universities, and industry together to work on pre-competitive research. So the industry gets to select what kind, and they give guidance on which directions to go for research. They also vote on the topic to a research topic, and they will also get to guide the student. And in this, we have very success. We have tremendous success in this partnership, and we are able to bring in very big tech companies.
So we'll close up here with a sort of a final summary regarding our approach to economic modeling. We see really implicative opportunity to return on our investments through recruitment, through innovation, through educational initiatives, and by expanding the research infrastructure around Bethesda. And as we pursue state and federal funding in this regard, we believe that we have a lot of opportunity to expand on these models and to start demonstrating progress in this regard, which we're already accomplishing. So in conclusion, we'd like to say thank you again for the invitation. Our overarching goal is to be academic, to be highly innovative, to be entrepreneurial. We're going to try to have fun doing it. So please visit us.
Thank you. We have questions?
Comment. Just to end with what I think Dr. Perman said at the last presentation, when he emphasized the role of Shaded Grove and making certain that they are included in all of our discussions and finding ways in which to be collaborative with them. Because part of the sale to the community and getting public support was built on that assumption. And he made a comment at the end, I think, emphasizing this. I just want to reemphasize what he emphasized at the earlier meeting. Thank you.
I'd just like to address that really important point briefly. Our outreach includes expanding involvement and collaboration throughout some of the members of the system, but we also have an obligation to interface directly with community members. We've started that approach to understand how the outputs of our data science can be delivered directly to them. And that's an important pivot point compared to what other institutions around the country may be trying to do in these type of initiatives. This is an advantage for us. And that's based on some of the comments earlier about the inroads that University of Maryland, Baltimore, and other assets here already have with different communities in this region, and then likewise across the state.
I don't have a question, just a comment. First, thank you very much for the presentation. I think it's really important for this board to learn as much as we can about the Institute and what it's doing. I think that, and I would also encourage this board and the system to continue to support the Institute as much as we possibly can, and to prioritize it with the state and other potential partners and funders. I think it has the potential to be a best in class in collaboration among system institutions and other partners, both federally throughout the state and locally. And I also think it has the potential to be transformative to the point where the governor referenced the assets of the state. And I think very quickly, if we properly resource this and continue to have the leadership that we have, that it will be one of those assets in the state of Maryland that the governor currently and future will talk about. And so thank you very much for your work.
Their thoughts? Yes, Kevin.
Madam Chair, just to reiterate Regent Ganella, and he hit it right on the head, and also was fortunate to hear our governor, but that this is really a potentially transformative opportunity for our state, and would encourage us as partners to really begin to concentrate perhaps on the product management and access to capital opportunities. I think it was really clear about really how good we are as a state on the research and early development side. Our big opportunity is to make sure we get into we perfect to a space, really developing our product management opportunities and capital attraction. So it was just more of a comment, and Regent Ganella was right on. Our partnership with the state to begin to make sure we grow it into the industry that it can be. I mean, globally leading, really opportunistic. So I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Other thoughts or comments? Seeing none, this presentation, as you know, I found fascinating the first time I heard it. It's even more fascinating the second time. It's amazing what we can do when we collaborate. And so this is a fine example of empower and power of working together with two universities. So thank you for what you're doing, and thanks for coming out this morning and sharing it.
Thank you.
This brings us to the close of today's meeting. Before I close, I want to recognize that it is a special time in many cultures for people of many faiths and for those of no particular faith. I wish you all the peace of the season. May the holidays, however you celebrate them, be a time of warmth and goodwill. And may the new year bring us all good news. The Open Meetings Act permits public bodies to close their meetings to the public in circumstances outlined in 3-305 of the Act, and to carry out administrative functions exempted by 3-103 of the Act. The Board of Regents will now vote to reconvene in closed session. The agenda for the public meeting today includes a written statement with a citation of the legal authority and reasons for closing the meeting, and a listing of the topics to be discussed. The statement has been provided to the Regents and it is posted on the USM's website. Do I have a motion to move to close?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The meeting is closed and will reconvene in closed session